Hello everybody, this is Ernie Vaughn again with Vaughn-Da-Rosa Farms. Hope you're having a wonderful evening. It's Thursday evening. The weather ain't that great here. Hope it's better where you at. I'm going to start the how to start your business tonight with zero money. And as usual, if you get something out of it, there's going to be a whole bunch more coming. A whole bunch more. Like and subscribe and pass it on. Well, let's get started. All right, at this time, hopefully you've made that decision, you've made that commitment that you're ready to start your small scale business. I hope it's in farming, homesteading, whatever you want to call it. I call mine small scale farming. It could be any business, but there's a lot of things, a lot of time on a lot of videos that I've watched. If I was starting out, misleads me or don't give me a clue. And what I'm wanting to do tonight, I'm going to show you a lot of things that if you don't believe me, you can research yourself. But I hope from my experiences in business and management, it's going to help your journey a little bit easier. And there's an old saying, the hardest part to a 1,000-mile journey is the first step. And that's what we're taking tonight. Do not let all this overwhelm you. It may or may not apply in a lot of your cases and what you're doing, but it is things that you need to be aware of and you need to find out. Okay, let's get started. One of the things, I don't know how far we'll get to tonight, but it's real important in any kind of business, and it's important in life in general, is your skill sets. Along with that, to me, goes your self-worth. You know, what your self-worth, what your metal, what you're made out of, what your character, what your abilities, which we'll get on into that a whole lot later in a different video. We're going to be looking at small scale, which if you're a young person starting out, that's exactly what I recommend. Possibly medium scale, large scale, and each one of those has so many different facets into it. I'll give you a quick example. You starting off on small scale, you're going to be a small scale farmer. I'm going to show you how you're going to determine what level farmer your goal is going to be, or any other level in your business later on. But say you're starting off small scale. Okay, what does that mean? Medium scale, large scale, what does those things mean? One thing I'd like to point out, I'm sure most of you know this, I've known people that didn't know this. They get all excited, they go out and they buy them 3 acres of land, 5 acres of land, whatever amount of land. And my daddy taught me this. He says, son, if you ever buy land, read the deed, read the restrictions, find out the zoning where you're buying that land. But anyway, you could be one of those people, and I hope you're not, that makes a mistake going buying 5 acres of land because they can get it. They can get finance and owner finance and bank finance and whatever it may be. And I'm going to have a small scale farm. I'm going to have me some pigs, a couple cows, rabbits, chickens, you know, just whatever. Well, when you get into that and you've done closed, you've got the obligation of meeting those payments. You own that note. You own them payments. Look for restrictions, okay? On the deed, if there's any restrictions, which it possibly could be what you can or cannot build there, what you may or may not be able to have there. Look at those things real carefully. And if you're not sure, get an attorney, find out. The second thing is what's the zoning on it? My farm is outside of the city limits. If I was inside the city limits, they would be different zones on my land telling me what I can and cannot do based on that town or that city's zoning. So be sure to check those things out. A lot of people don't do that. I've known people that live in HOAs, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then to find out, I would like to have a trio of chickens. Nothing big, nothing fancy. Well, guess what? That HOA probably ain't gonna allow that. Roosters make a lot of noise. I know that happened to an individual, and he wanted to do that, but because of the rules and regulations of the HOA, which he signed, and evidently he didn't read too good, he's not allowed to do that. And the third thing I would recommend anybody when you're hunting a piece of land, this is the way I'm going to do it, and what I did when I bought this land, all the above, but also I want water on that land. I want a nice creek, stream, or whatever if possible. Okay, and like I said earlier, I don't want none of this what I'm going to show you tonight to discourage you. I wanted to encourage you. I want you to be excited and happy. And if you're watching this, you're a young person, you're a young couple, you're getting ready, you know, you done made that decision, like I said, you've made that commitment. And by this time, you probably pretty much got figured out what you want to do. Not necessarily all the way, but a good idea. But this is some real important stuff. A lot of times I never hear from anybody. I didn't hear a lot of it when I started out. I had to figure it out for myself. In my businesses, I've got an accountant, I've got an attorney, I've got my insurance guy. I have to make sure I'm covered. When you're an entrepreneur and you make that step and you make that decision to go from, and I'm going to show you how young people with nothing can start actual farming now. But if you're that person that's ready to jump into it, depending on the level, there's so many things to go over and cover where you don't get burnt, to where it's going to be a successful venture, not more stress, possibly even failure, lack of preparedness, lack of monitoring, managing, setting goals. Those things will lead to failure. But anyway, one thing I'm going to show you tonight, some of the legal things that you need to be aware of and be concerned with. So if you would, just let me grab my notebook. And I'm not going to write all these down because it would fill that board up about 20 times, but just briefly, and in later videos, we'll break these down. If I get any comments, people asking specific questions, I'll be more than happy to address those. But here's some things you need to be aware of. And this is at the level when you decided, okay, I'm going to start marketing my farm products. Well, you got to get them grown and have something to market to start with, which we'll get to that too. But when you do get to that point, so many things. You got marketing. How you going to market it? I watch a lot of videos, and it just seems like a dream come true, and I'm so happy for them people that it's worked out and they're being, you know, extremely successful. Just tremendously happy for them. But for the young people, the couple just starting out, especially with very little resources, very little tools, and I don't mean physical tools, I'll get into that later. You know, very little capital, sources of capital. It can make you scratch your head. But here's some things that, you know, you'll get to a point. I'm at that point now in a sense. What we're trying to do, me and my wife, we started in January. I'm looking at probably, I don't know, 4 to 6 months before I will technically be in that situation, but I'm having to prepare for it now. I'm researching, I'm developing my markets, I'm making my resources. I spent an hour on the phone today with regulatory people, just finding out different things about produce and growing meat, because they don't tell you all that. You know, you'll see a video, and I grossed a whole bunch from 4 hogs. Well, yeah, they did gross that from 4 hogs, but you know, a lot of times they don't go back and tell you the net and the definition of the net. And here's some hidden costs that you're gonna face part of them if you do it on any kind of level. Let me read these off. Legal. when you're an entrepreneur, it's got many rewards. You've got the opportunity, how much effort and work you put into it to build a successful business that you can be proud of and make part of your living, if not all you're living off of eventually. But along that road, you're going to have legal issues. My attorney, with my two businesses, I met with him twice in the last month just to make sure I'm covering all my bases. I don't want somebody to come up and try to file a lawsuit on me. I want to make sure I'm doing what the law says, and there's other agencies you're going to have to be aware of as well. That young couple starting out, say you got a child, maybe 2 children, and you're making that decision, hey man, I've got the land, I got the resource, I can buy 5 acres of land tomorrow. You've done bought it, and I hope you check them other things out that I said. But one thing you've got to be aware of, when you're not working for a plant or a company that offers it, well, you got a thing called medical insurance to protect you and your family if anything happens to them, and I hope it don't, but somebody gets hurt, somebody gets sick, somebody needs medicine, and that's expensive. That's got to be calculated in. A lot of the things I see don't tell me that, but I know that for a fact. Another thing you got to calculate in, depending on your enterprise, if you've got some larger animals, I'm going to name 3, say a cow, a goat, or a hog, you better be looking into liability insurance. And what that means is, if that cow, hog, or goat got out, caused a wreck, somebody got hurt, somebody died, guess what? You're liable. You need to check into that if that fits your situation. There's a lot of compliance issues that you've got to be aware of. And again, I never hear much of this on the videos that I watch, and I've watched hundreds of hours. Some of the compliance agencies, and some of it ain't a big deal, some of it could be a big deal. But if you're going to do this as a business, it really don't matter what you think or I think, agree with it or not. If you go play that ball game, you got to play by the rules in your county, your state, your country, wherever you live. And where I live, what I have to be aware of and research, and through my different people, I may have to have a business license. My case, that ain't that much. Right now, I don't need one because I'm not selling. When I go retail, I probably will have to have one. I find all that stuff out and do that through my accountant. Some other agencies you may or may not have to deal with is OSHA, DHEC. One of our operations we go do, I will have to deal and comply with DHEC. And I'll tell you right now, I've been telling y'all, I'm going to show y'all this stuff, teach you this stuff, point stuff out, especially young people. I want to see young people succeed. Young people, a lot of young people's got to change their mindset too. And I'm going to do another video about, I'll probably title it something like, I'm in a dead-end job, or I hate my job, or whatever. And we're going to really look at this right here, self-worth and mental. That's so important in any business, because at some point in time, you're going to have to deal with a customer, okay? So you got to have the right skill set and qualifications and your self-worth where you can deal with those customers, which is going to equal your markets. And I'm going to show you that as well. Another one you may or may not have to deal with is EPA, USDA. I'm going to have to deal with USDA. You're going to have taxes. You're going to have business taxes. You're going to have personal taxes. You're going to have to pay taxes on your farm stuff that you made or didn't make. It just gets real deep. But that's one thing an accountant can help you with. And if you're just starting out, you don't have to worry too much about that. Before you make too many commitments and decisions, give you an example. I'm going to go tomorrow. I'm going to order 200 broilers. I'm going to grow them out. I'm going to market them. We better do a lot of thinking. Go ahead and check with the USDA. Here where I live, any meat, I've got to transport it to a USDA inspected butchering facility in a certain way, and then I've got to bring that meat back to my farm where I'm going to sell it in a certain way. And a lot of those is what I call hidden costs, because if you're not aware of that, and a lot of them don't tell you that, that basically means you've got to have a freezer and a generator or a refrigerator truck, which can be an added expense, but there's ways around it. You might rent one, you might hire, contract that out, but still it's an indirect cost if you wouldn't count for it. Remember that gross number they tell you, oh, I made $10,000 gross off of these 5 hogs. Worry about the net, the net. The net is after all expenses, the cost of the hogs, the cost of hauling, the cost of butchering, the cost of feeding, fencing. If it was hogs, you better have some good fencing, I'm telling you. In some cases, this probably wouldn't apply to most people, but here where I live, I have a very large creek on my property, and I have a small creek. And if I want to manipulate that creek in any way to pump water to a pond or a pond irrigation or to animals and back into the creek, I've got to get them involved. Permits, license, inspections. Another thing that you need to be aware of, depending on what scale, small, medium, large, and I stick with my small folks. This right here, you know, it can help these, but obviously, say if you went to buy that 5 or 10 acres, your dream farm, your dream goal, we'll set it small, baby steps. Because everything we start now, and I'm going to do one video on what exactly we doing, when we started it, and how much we expect to make over how much time. We're starting small. We're starting small. Another thing that if you do go that route about your financing, okay, you found 5 acres, you're gonna go buy it. I had this conversation with somebody a couple of days ago. You know, I got a bunch of land I can buy, I can get it. Well, have you checked the deed? Have you checked restrictions? Have you checked zoning? Is it fenced? What kind of timber's on it? Are there any timber on it? Because you could get that land tomorrow, and you know you could be sitting here 2 months from now, still sitting on your thumb because it still ain't fenced. You know, you got to know what you're getting when you buy it. You got to understand how much it's going to cost to build the infrastructure. What does that mean? Whether you're not going to live there, just say for right now, you go build a house there in 10 years. Well, right now you're living somewhere else. But your infrastructure, how much it go cost to get roads cut in? How much does it go cost to build fencing? What kind of fencing are you gonna put up? Fencing is expensive. Can you do it? Do you know how to do it? Do you have to contract it? Do you have to outsource it? You're gonna get animals, and you got to have a barn. Well, I'll go ahead and get me, 10 cows and put on there, and a year from now I'll have 10 calves. Well, you may have. Well, how you gonna work them cows? Who's gonna help you? What do you know about them cows? What do you know about any kind of medication, if any, they're gonna need? What do you know about if a first-time heifer has problems calving? Do you know how to go out there and pull that calf to save her and the baby or one of them's life? What do you know about coyote, predator protection? So many things that you need to look at all these little details and get you a game plan. And if you start out small, you're gonna learn. I want to do one video on, I ain't got it wrote on there, but about resources, about skills, about education, about your knowledge. Well, I don't want to go to college. I don't got the money to go to college. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Well, I'm going to show you how you can gain that experience and that education. And I've done it myself, and I'll tell you about that. That didn't cost me 0 money. And I learned a lot. I learned more than I would at a university probably. but just going on through that, you know, and we're getting ready now to stage to start seriously mapping out our business, our project. We need to be looking at, you know, financing, how am I going to buy my stock, how am I going to buy my whatever, you know. And again, this relates to any kind of business. That's what's so cool about this. You're going to gain knowledge for not just farming, but any kind of business you want to start. Just use common sense. If you got a question, leave a comment, you know. I'll get back with you. I'll get you an answer. That's part of developing resources. I can answer any question you can ask, because not me with all the knowledge, but my resources that I know will have the knowledge and a correct way of doing it. And always remember, you know, there's 10 different thousand ways you can do something a lot of times. You got to figure out what works best for you, what makes the most sense for you. And I'm going to say it again, I strongly suggest start off small. Money in your pocket. You need capital. You need financing. You know, how much money you got in your pocket? You're going to have direct costs to deal with. You're going to have indirect costs to deal with. So, you know, try to stay away if you can from financing. Try to stay away if you can for getting in debt. Unless I give you example, is a married young couple, young whoever, middle, it don't matter, decided they want to buy them 10 acres in the country. They both work, one of them work, you know, they're going to sell this place first, and then, you know, their debt ratio really hadn't changed. They're just mainly relocating, but then it gives them opportunity to build a small-scale farm, farmstead, homestead, whatever you want to call it, on that property. So this is going to wrap it up for tonight. I hope I got some people's minds a thinking, brains a churning. I hope it ain't discouraging nobody, but this is the real truth. This is what you face in business in many different facets, depending on what level, what type business. Be patient, learn. The people I've dealt with on the phone today, 3 different agencies, is all super nice. They're sending me information. I'm going to tell more about that later. That'll relate to my produce and some of the meat stuff we want to do on the farm. And be positive. You're being positive, you're doing something, you're reaching your goals. You set a short-term goal, and that was, you know, you made a decision and a commitment. You're going to do it. Well, be happy. This is just part of the ball game. That's getting in the parking lot and fighting the crowds and getting out. I hate that so much, but hey, this can be exciting. It's interesting. You're learning something. You're contributing something to your goal, building a future, a better quality of life with your farming or whatever type business you choose. So I'm going to close it tonight. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope you'll subscribe and ring that bell, because there's going to be a lot more detailed stuff like this, stuff you don't hear about enough, and give you different views, different options, and help you be successful. That's what my goal is. So till the next time, this is Ernie with Vaughn-Da-Rosa Farms, and as always, don't forget, take the time to smell the roses. See ya.